Trigger warning, we're going to talk about rape, we're going to talk about crime scenes, we're going to talk about really bad things. So if you can't handle that, I would suggest not being here. But today is Monday, and it is time for True Crime and Makeup Monday. Sorry for the late upload. I'd already filmed this and scheduled it. However, my computer corrupted the file, so now we're refilming and posting. So unfortunately, we are several hours late, but better late than never, right? Today's story is about Elizabeth Bathory. Also, she is Hungarian, and most of the names are very difficult to pronounce, so just bear with me. I'm going to do the best I can, but I make no promises that I will be pronouncing the names correctly. Just saying. Countess Elizabeth Bathory de Exed was a Hungarian noblewoman and alleged serial killer from the family of Bathory who owned land in the Kingdom of Hungary, now known as Slovakia. Bathory and four of her servants were accused of torturing and killing hundreds of girls and women between 1590 and 1610. Her servants were put on trial and convicted, whereas Bathory was confined to her home. She was imprisoned within the castle of Szeged. The charges leveled against Bathory have been described by several historians as a witch hunt. Other writers, such as Michael Farron in 1989, have said that the accusations against Bathory were supported by testimony from more than 300 individuals, some of whom described physical evidence and the presence of mutilated, dead, dying, and imprisoned girls found at the time of her arrest. In a 2018 article for Historical Science Review, Alexandra Bartosiewicz stated that when Bathory was persecuted, the accusations were a spectacle to destroy her family's influence in the region, which was considered a threat to the political interests of her neighbors, including the Habsburg Empire. Stories about Bathory quickly became a part of national folklore, legends describing her vampiric tendencies, such as the tale that she bathed in the blood of virgins to retain her youth, were generally recorded years after her death and are considered unreliable. Some insist she inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1897, although Stoker's notes on the novel provided no direct evidence to support this hypothesis. Nicknames and literary epithets attributed to her include the Blood Countess and Countess Dracula. Bathory was born in 1560 on a family estate in Nyrabator, Royal Hungary. She spent her childhood at Exed Castle. Her father was Baron George the Sixth of Bathory, of the Exed branch of the family, brother of Andrew Bonaventura Bathory, who had been voivode of Transylvania. Her mother was Baroness Anna Bathory, daughter of Stephen Bathory of Somlyo, also voivode of Transylvania, who was of the Somlyo branch. I'm not really sure how that works. Through her mother, Elizabeth was the niece of the Hungarian noble Stephen Bathory, the King of Poland, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and Prince of Transylvania. She had several siblings. Her older brother Stephen Bathory served as a judge royal of Hungary. Is it Hungary or is it Hungary? I'm not really sure how they pronounce that. As a child, Bathory had multiple seizures that may have been caused by what we now know as epilepsy. At the time, symptoms relating to epilepsy were diagnosed as falling sickness, and treatments included rubbing blood of a non-sufferer on the lips of an epileptic or giving the epileptic a mix of non-sufferer's blood and piece of skull as their episode ended. Because that sounds normal. A proposal made by some sources In order to explain Bathory's cruelty later in her life is that she was trained by her family to be cruel. Sorry, I dropped some things. Got it. Bathory was raised a Calvinist Protestant. As a young woman, she learned Latin, German, Hungarian, and Greek. Born into a privileged family of nobility, Bathory was endowed with wealth, education, and a prominent social rank. At the age of 13, before her first marriage, Bathory allegedly gave birth to a child. The child, said to have been fathered by a peasant boy, was supposedly given away to a local woman who was trusted by the Bathory family. The woman was paid for her actions, and the child was taken to Wallachia. Evidence of this pregnancy came up long after Elizabeth's death. Though rumors spread by peasants, therefore validity of the rumor is often disputed. Because, can't trust the peasants. In 1573, Bathory was engaged to Count Ferenc Nadasi, a member of the Nadasi family. It was a political arrangement within the circles of the aristocracy. Nadasi was the son of Baron Thomas Nadasi de Nadased Forgesifold and Orsolia Canizal. Sorry, this is so hard. I love the history accounts that I do, but man, pronouncing the names is hard. On May 8th, 1575, Bathory and Nadasi were married at the Palace of Verano. The marriage resulted in combined land ownership in both Transylvania and the Kingdom of Hungary. Nadasi's wedding gift to Bathory was his household, Castle of Szeged, situated in the Little Carpathians near Vaguhali and Treneskin, present-day Slovakia. The castle had been bought by his mother in 1569 and was given to Nadasi, who transferred it to Elizabeth during their nuptials. Hi, honey, let's get married. You can have this awesome house in 17 surrounding counties. Together with the Szeged country house and 17 adjacent villages. Man, that's like a hell of a wedding present, don't you think? I'd get married for that. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. After the wedding, the couple lived in Nadasi's castle at Sarvar in 1578. 3 years into their marriage, Nadasi became the chief commander of Hungarian troops, leading them to war against the Ottomans. I'm not even gonna lie. When I was little and I heard about the Ottoman Empire, I legit thought they created the little things that you put your feet on that are called Ottomans. I don't know why. I was a very smart child, but for some reason that just escaped my understanding. Just wanted to share that little fun fact. Bathory managed business affairs and the family's multiple estates during the war. This role usually included responsibility for the Hungarian and Slavic people, providing medical care during the Long War. That is what it was called, not just the Long War. It was the Long War. I don't know why they called it that, but that is what it was called. And Bathory was charged with the defense of her husband's estates, which lay on the route to Vienna. The threat of attack was significant, for the village of Szeged had previously been plundered by the Ottomans, while Sarvar, located near the border that divided Royal Hungary and Ottoman-occupied Hungary, was in even greater danger. There were several instances where Bathory intervened on behalf of destitute women, including a woman whose husband was captured by the Ottomans and a woman whose daughter was raped and impregnated. Bathory's daughter, Anna Nadasi, was born in 1585 and was later to become the wife of Nicola The sixth, Zorinsky, cannot speak English today, sorry. Bathory's other known children include Orsolia Nadasi, who would later become the wife of Istvan Benio, Catalin Nadasi, Andras Nadasi, and Pal Nadasi, or Paul, father of Franz III Nadasi, who was one of the leaders of the Magnate conspiracy against Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I. Some chronicles also indicate that the couple had another son named Miklos Nadasi, although this cannot be confirmed, and it could be that he was simply a cousin or died young, as he is not named in Bathory's will from 1610. Georgi Nadasi is also supposedly the name of one of the deceased Nadasi infants, but this cannot be confirmed. All of Elizabeth's children were cared for by governesses, as Bathory herself had been. Ferenc Nadasi died on January 4th, 1604, at the age of 48. Although the exact nature of the illness which led to his death is unknown, it seems to have started in 1601 and initially caused debilitating pain in his legs. From that time, he never fully recovered, and in 1603 became permanently disabled. He had been married to Bathory for 29 years. Before dying, Nadasi entrusted his heirs and widow to Georgi Thurzio, who would eventually lead the investigation into Bathory's crimes. For Nadasi, to me, it sounds like polio or even scoliosis, just a lot of modern day things that they didn't have back then. Well, they had, but they didn't know what they were back then. So it really sounds like something that we would commonplace be able to diagnose now. But yeah, I just wanted to put that in there because it sounds like polio or Parkinson's. Between 1602 and 1604, after rumors of Bathory's atrocities had spread throughout the kingdom, Lutheran minister Istvan Megary made complaints against her, both publicly and at the court in Vienna. In 1610, Matthias II assigned Georgi Thurzio the Palestine of Hungary to investigate. Thurzio ordered two notaries, Andreas Kerestazori and Moses Cesarki, to collect evidence in March of 1610. By October 1610, they had collected 52 witness statements. By 1611, that number had risen to over 300. Bathory is said to have begun killing daughters of the lesser gentry. So the lesser gentry is essentially peasants. So peasant children is what she was accused of murdering. Who were sent to her gymnasium by their parents to learn courtly etiquette. The use of needles was also mentioned by the collaborators in court. There were many suspected forms of torture carried out by Bathory, supposedly, allegedly, if you will. The important thing to remember with all this is that eyewitness testimony is notorious for being bad evidence. It is considered circumstantial because there's no guarantee that your eyewitness actually saw everything that they claim to have seen. This is why it is not used in most modern day courtrooms. And it's important to keep that in mind. Some witnesses named relatives who died while at the gymnasium. Others reported having seen traces of torture on dead bodies, some of which were buried in graveyards and others in unmarked locations. On December 13th, 1612, Nikola Zorinsky confirmed the agreement with Thurzio about the imprisonment of Bathory and distribution of the estate. On New Year's Eve 1612, Thurzio went to Szeged Castle and arrested Bathory along with 4 of her servants who were accused of being her accomplices: Dorothea Semetes, Ileana Joe, Katerina Beniki, and Hanios Houvere, or FICO. According to Thurzio's letter to his wife, his unannounced visit found one dead girl and another living pray girl in the castle, but there is no evidence that they asked what happened to her. And it is very important to remember that Bathory opened her home to take care of people who had been injured and hurt during this war. So she may have had medical knowledge, and that may be why these people were there. Maybe one did not survive whatever had happened to her, but there is no evidence to support the fact that she was actually torturing them, and there is evidence to support the fact that she may have had some medical knowledge, and that may be why they were actually there. So we love a good horror story. Everybody is going to continue to tell the jacked up version of Elizabeth Bathory, and that's fine. I'm giving you the facts. It is very possible that she had some medical knowledge from helping during the war, and that is why these women were there. I never want to jump to the conclusion that, everybody's a serial killer when somebody could be genuinely trying to help others. We have to keep that in mind. Although it is commonly believed that Bathory was caught in the act of torture, she was actually having dinner. Initially, Thursday made the declaration to Bathory's guests and villagers that he had caught her red-handed. However, she was arrested and detained prior to the discovery or presentation of the victims. It seems most likely that the claim of Thursday's discovering Bathory covered in blood had been the embellishment of fictionalized accounts. Thursday debated further proceedings with Bathory's son Paul and two of her son-in-laws, Nicola Zorinsky and Giorgio Drugeth. Her family, which ruled Transylvania, sought to avoid the loss of Bathory's property, which was at risk of being seized by the crown following a public scandal. Thursio, along with Paul and her two son-in-laws, originally planned for Bathory to be sent to a nunnery, but as accounts of her actions spread, they decided to keep her under strict house arrest. Most of the witnesses testified that they heard the accusations from others, but did not see it themselves. The servants confessed under torture. So this is what gets me with this particular story. We arrested Elizabeth Bathory and her servants for torturing people, right? Then we tortured the servants into confessing that they had been torturing people, which is not allowed. Y'all get where I'm going with this? What is the purpose? And if you're tortured badly enough, which one of them was, and I will bring up what they did to her, you're going to confess to literally anything, whether you did it or you didn't. And that's the sad part. But we're going to arrest you for torturing people, but we're going to torture you so you'll confess that you were torturing people, because torturing people is bad and you shouldn't do that. Most of the witnesses testified that they heard the accusations from others, but they did not see it themselves. The servants confessed under torture, which is not credible in contemporary proceedings. They were the king's witnesses, but they were executed. Ilona Joe and Dorotea Cizentes had their fingers torn out with a pair of red-hot pincers and were then burned alive. Due to his youth and the belief that he was less culpable, Hanios Houvere, FICO, was executed by a much less painful method of beheading. It's a mercy kill, clearly. Afterwards, his body was burned on the same pyre as Joe and Cizentes. So we're not going to torture you the way we tortured the others, but you still have to stand where we killed them, so we can burn your body. Yeah. I guess at least he didn't have to stand there alive. I guess that's better than being burned alive. Another servant, Erzesi Mahorvia, initially escaped capture but was burned alive after being apprehended. Katerina Beneka received a life sentence after evidence showed that she'd been abused by the other women. The accusations of murder were based on rumors. There is no document to prove that anyone in the area complained about the Countess. In this time period, if someone was harmed or someone even stole a chicken, a letter of complaint was written. Two trials were held in the wake of Bathory's arrest. The first was held on January 2nd, 1611, and the second on January 7th, 1611. The highest number of victims cited during the trial of Bathory's accomplices was 650, but this number comes from the claim by a servant girl named Susanna that Jacob Silvesi, Bathory's court official, had seen the figure in one of Bathory's private books. But the book was never revealed, and Silvesi never mentioned it in his testimony. On January 25th, 1611, Thursio wrote a letter to King Mathis describing that they had captured and confined Bathory to her castle. The Palatine also coordinated the steps of the investigation with the political struggle with the Prince of Transylvania. She was detained in the castle of Sajet for the remainder of her life, where she died at the age of 54. As Georgie Thursio wrote, Elizabeth Bathory was locked in a bricked room, but according to other sources, written documents from the visits of priests in July of 1614, she was able to move freely and unhindered in the castle, more akin to our common house arrest. She wrote a will in September 1610, in which she left all current and future inheritance possession to her children. In the last month of 1614, she signed her arrangement, in which she distributed the estates, lands, and possessions. I've lost an earring. Of course. It's fine. God, this has been a day. On the evening of August 20th, 1614, Bathory complained to her bodyguard that her hands were cold, whereas upon he replied, "It's nothing, mistress, just go lie down." She went to sleep and was found dead the following morning. She was buried in the church of Sajet on November 25th, 1614, but according to some sources, due to the villagers' uproar over having the Countess buried in their cemetery, her body was moved to her birth home at Exed, where it was interred at the Bathory family crypt. The location of her body today is unknown, but believed to be buried deep in the church area of the castle. The Sajet Church and the castle of Sajet do not bear any markings of her possible grave. Several authors, such as Lazazlo Nagagi and Dr. Irma Cardos, have argued that Elizabeth Bathory was a victim of conspiracy. Nagy argued that the proceedings against Bathory were largely politically motivated, possibly due to her extensive wealth and the ownership of large areas of land in Hungary, which increased after the death of her husband. The theory is consistent with Hungarian history at that time, which included religious and political conflicts, especially relating to the wars with the Ottoman Empire, the spread of Protestantism, and the extension of Habsburg power over Hungary. Moreover, Mathis owed a large debt to Bathory, which was canceled after she was arrested. There are counter-arguments made against this theory. The investigation into Bathory's crimes was sparked by complaints from a Lutheran minister, Istvan Magari. This does not contribute to the notion of a Catholic Habsburg plot against the Protestant Bathory, although religious tension is still a possible source of conflict, as Bathory was raised Calvinist, not Lutheran. To support Bathory's innocence, the testimony of around 300 witnesses and the physical evidence collected by the investigators have to be addressed or disputed. That evidence included numerous bodies and dead and dying girls found when the castle was entered by Thurzo. Cardos argues that the physical evidence was exaggerated, and Thurzo misrepresented dead and wounded patients as victims of Bathory, as disgracing her would greatly benefit his political state ambitions. And that is the sad and tragic story of Elizabeth Bathory. Did she do what she was accused of doing? We will never know. There's no way to find out now. I don't know that I truly believe that she tortured people per se, but I wasn't there and I don't know her, so I can't tell you that. It was not uncommon for kings and queens to torture their villagers and their followers back in that day. So it's possible, but the evidence strongly supports another theory. Um, if you liked this segment, please consider following and subscribing. I'm here for you every Monday, usually on time at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Um, Next week, we will be covering the Death Angels. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others and make good choices. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.